wasn't sure how to start this one since I'm completely alone doing my first solo cast. As I talked about in episode 3 with Rohini, I knew that this would probably come someday, but that it would be a bit of a challenge for me since using my voice and speaking is something that I struggle with. And being in the seat all by myself with no one to bounce off of, pretty overwhelming idea. Luckily, we have some editing software, so if I need to take long pauses, I can just cut those right out and you guys won't know the difference. All right, so why did I want to do this solo cast? I feel like the podcast has been on a little bit of a break over the last few weeks. I was on a good roll with interviewing different people and having more interviews scheduled and lined up. And then I did one with, I actually won't say who it was with, but the episode will come out eventually. But I did an episode, and at the end of it, I just felt that I really could have done a better job. I felt that I wasn't serving the conversation in the best way, asking the best questions, guiding our conversation where I wanted it to go. And it was difficult. After we hung up, I really went into negative thinking and really negative self-talk about my intelligence, about how slow I can be to think and to feel. But then after allowing myself to be in that negative mindset for a few hours, I realized that I'm just a slow thinker. Sometimes I'd need more time to process conversations and to come up with my own thoughts. And that led me to realize that I maybe not be feeling with my heart very quickly. Instead, the mind is just trying to run the conversation and come up with the next smart thing to say and stay relevant and all that. But the good stuff, the smart things I want to say, those things, they come from the heart. And perhaps when I was recording, I was too much in the mind, thinking too much about what this podcast episode was going to sound like, and not connecting enough to my deeper self. So it was a valuable lesson that I got out of it. Having said that, that episode deserves not a complete redo, but a second part. And that's something that I still hope to do in the near future. Now, after doing that episode, Davina and I recorded a podcast together about our ayahuasca journey, and that's coming out shortly. And then we together, Davina and I, interviewed Sky Cohen's, who's a pretty famous YouTuber whose videos we really enjoy, and we loved that conversation. That was a ton of fun for us to meet someone that we, spend a lot of time watching on our screens. And that interview is going to be out probably the next one next week. So the podcast is still going. It's on a little bit of break, just giving me a chance to catch up. Through this break, I'm also learning to stop putting so much pressure on myself. These are totally self-imposed deadlines, and I don't need to be rushing anything. I can keep doing it at a pace that serves me well, where I'm still enjoying it, where I'm not facing any kind of potential burnout, and just go with it. If the frequency of the podcast starts dropping a little bit, please know that it's coming from a good place. As I'm saying that, I'm just filled with so much gratitude for everyone who has tuned in and who has been listening. There's been over 2,000 plays on the podcast already, and I'm less than 10 episodes in, so those feel like really good results. And even though I don't really care about the results, they still feel good when I stop and look at them. So what else has been going on in my life? I am in the process of completing my breathwork facilitator training, and I've started guiding my own experiences here in Samara. I've done 2 so far. 5 people showed up to the first one. Several of the people came back with their partners on the next one, and there were 10 people. It was a full group, and I am finding so much fulfillment in holding that space and guiding those experiences. It's allowing me to use my voice in a way that I feel really confident, and I always come out of it just feeling so alive. And seeing people work through their own stuff and being their own healers, and me being there to just guide them and push them a little bit using their breath. There's truly no feeling like it. And I hope that everyone can find a purpose in life where they can feel this way, regardless of what it is. Doesn't have to be breath work, doesn't have to be yoga, doesn't have to be plant medicines. It can really be anything. But find something where you can go into a flow state repeatedly and you feel good after it, and you don't care if you're getting paid or not. And it's just such a beautiful feeling and such a beautiful way to be on this earth and to experience ourselves in this human form. That leads me to talk about Bufo. Bufo is a extremely powerful psychedelic, supposed to be the most powerful psychedelic known to man. And it comes from the back of this toad called Bufo alvarius. And it is generally found in the Sonoran Desert in Mexico. And the toad is not harmed when the venom is collected from it. And then the venom is heated in a pipe and inhaled. And the active substance is 5-MeO-DMT, which is a very close relative to the DMT that we find in ayahuasca, or that is naturally available to us in our brains. And so it's something that I had wanted to sit with for the last few months. I had heard about it extensively through different people and through the different circles that I'm a part of. And I was extremely curious about the experience. Supposedly, it reduces you to nothing, or to everything, rather. Reduces you to everything, where you experience a full ego death. There's no more Daniel, there's no more memory, there's no more anything. And you become everything. And that is scary, but also super interesting. So I signed up to do it as part of a one-day experience here outside of Samara. And as the days came closer and closer, our schedule decided to fill up. And the next day we were leaving for San Jose. And I decided to back out of it at the last minute, just a few days before. And I was very honest with myself. I did wonder if it was out of fear that I was backing out of it, if it was my ego knew it was about to get obliterated and didn't want to do it. But reality is our schedule was pretty crazy that week, and it just wasn't a good time to take a whole day and more with integration to myself, and I knew I wouldn't have the space. So I put it off. And then just a few days later, we found ourselves at an ice bath immersion with Plug in Mind, 2 people we know here in Samara. And as part of their offerings, they also do Kambo, which is another toad ceremony, and Bufo ceremonies. And they weren't serving it during the ice bath. The ice bath was just its own separate event. But we got to talking, and I was mentioning to them that I'm sitting with ayahuasca in a couple of weeks. I was starting my dieta. And I don't know what led me to ask the question, but I just asked them, do you think that doing Bufo before or after ayahuasca is a good idea? Since I'm already opening up and cleaning out my vessel for ayahuasca through the dieta. And they said, if you're going to do it, you have to do it before. That's what's going to give the best results and mix the best. So I took it as a sign, and I said, you know what, how's your schedule next week? And we all found a nice spot in our week. And we said, perfect, we'll see you next Thursday. And so that was yesterday. Today's Friday, March 4th. And I went through with it. And it was such an interesting experience. If you watch any videos or listen to anybody talk about it, you'll see people just struggle to come up with the words for it. And I think part of the reason is that there's no mind, there's no ego, there's no memory working alongside the experience. You just explode into a million molecules and you become everything. And once you come out of, that experience, your mind just starts rebooting and trying to hold on to what you might have just experienced, but it's impossible. It just wasn't there. It just wasn't there. Let me backtrack here for a moment. So I arrived, and the beauty of that experience is with Plug-in Mind is that it was just me and Karina and Niko, the facilitators. And there's always value in group settings. I think it brings a special energy. But for something like this, it was so beautiful to just be for me. I didn't have to worry about anything. I could really take my time. So we chatted for a bit, and then they opened up the ice bath for me, so I was able to go in. And this turn in the ice bath actually turned out to be one of the more difficult ice bath experiences I've had. I think my ego was sort of on high alert, knowing that it was about to do something pretty difficult and having to really let go. And when I immersed myself in the ice water, I felt the pain of the cold water more than I had ever felt it before. And my ego was telling me, get out, get out, get out. You don't have to do this. And it was challenging. I don't know how long it took because I wasn't looking at the time, but it felt like it took a while for my ego and my mind to release and for me to relax. And they say with the ice bath, it's not about the amount of time. It's do it as long as you need to until your ego lets go and you start feeling comfortable in the ice water and you know that you don't actually need to get out. That's when it's time to get out. So I did that, managed to get through it. It was a good start. Then we headed to the backyard and we sat down and just started getting ready to sit with the Bufo. It's a quick experience. It's not when you inhale it, you disappear for about 10, 15 minutes, but then you come back to your body and, within 30, 45 minutes, you're pretty much metabolized completely the DMT and you're completely back to normal. So, I brought the kids to school and I was back home at noon. So very interesting how much can happen in so little time. So we sit down and I they gave me the pipe to just set my intention. And I actually hadn't thought about it that much before. And the first thing that came to mind was just be. Just be. Don't try to make this experience into anything. Just experience what it's like to just be. And then they proceeded to tell me that they put a little bit more of a dose in there, but that we were going to split it amongst the three of us. So I would go first, and then they would, Karina, and then Niko, and then me, Karina, and Niko. And for some reason, the sheer thought of all of us doing this at the same time terrified me more than anything. Because what if something goes wrong? What if my mind just started spinning? And in that moment, I just wanted to back out. I wanted to say, guys, this is not for me. I'm just going to go home. And as I say this, that is something that I've experienced so many times in my life, growing up as a kid, as a teenager, just when facing situations that were scary or uncomfortable, I just wanted to get out and go back home and not be part of it. And who knows what I've missed out on, but it has also led me to have this beautiful awareness of what fear looks like. And I knew not this time, not this time. This time I was going to go through with it and I was going to face my fear. So the first set of instructions is to inhale and exhale twice as long as the inhale, 5 times. And on the 5th, completely exhale every little bit of oxygen that's in our lungs, completely empty out so that you can take a big, deep inhale of the Bufo smoke afterwards. So I go first, do my inhale, exhales, and then inhale the smoke. And at that point, there's no turning around. There's nothing you can do. All you can do is just surrender and let go. And as I feel getting just a tiny bit dizzy, I know that I just want to lean back. And I see Karina starting to take hers, and that's the last thing I remember. And then explosion. And not that like the world exploded, just my consciousness completely exploded. And again, I don't know what happened. I don't know where I went, but I was nothing and I was everything. And the next thing I remember is I'm coming back into my body and I can feel every cell of my body is just so alive, more alive than I've ever felt it. And my mind is completely blank. And it's such a beautiful state to have no thoughts, to not have to be thinking about anything, to just be. It's not something that we're afforded on a regular basis. But when we get there, it is such a beautiful feeling. And then I am just so aware of, in that state, you're just so aware, you're pure awareness. And then the mind starts. And it's slow. It doesn't just like fully come back. Almost like a PC reboot from the 90s. It's just like you get the first command line and then another one, and then it's loading forever. And I'm just so aware of the mind rebooting, and the first thing it tries to do is just understand what happened. And as I see it trying, it just shuts back down again. And then I'm like back in this like state of pure bliss and pure awareness. And then it comes back a little bit stronger, and then it starts, and I'm just witnessing this full computer reboot, the mind coming back online, and the chatterbox starting up again. And I break down, and I start crying. I start sobbing because I realize just how simple it is. We are just pure light and pure awareness and pure love. And we are given this incredible tool that is the mind and the ego, so that we can experience life on earth, so we can taste, so we can smell, so we can see and touch and feel. And the mind is such a beautiful tool. But man, do we ever misuse it? We just let it run the show, and we get so disconnected from this purity that we are. And it is so simple, and we forget. We pile on all of these layers of things we need to do, of schedules, of anxiety, of stress, of anger, because we don't know how to move the energy around, because nobody teaches us. And then we get sick physically and in the mind, and we have no spiritual connection, and we completely forget who we are. And that brings me to a deep cry, a wailing for how painful it is that I forget that so many of us forget. And I don't want to forget anymore. I want to remember all the time who I am and to slow the mind down and to tell it to sit in the passenger or maybe even in the back seat. Or if you have a third row, just go sit in the back and let my pure divine self be the one that runs the show. This is a place that I've touched before with ayahuasca, although in a very different way, where I was a light floating in the infinite universe, and I knew that that place was kind of boring and that I didn't want to be infinite like that forever. Well, infinite like that is implied that it's forever, obviously. That I didn't want to be there. And yes, it's beautiful and it's cool, but this Earth is where, or other planets, is where we get to like really experience things. And then the other time was during Awaken Breathwork at Fit for Service in Sedona. I stripped all of my human layers all the way down to the light that I am. And I sobbed in the same way as I did yesterday for all of the layers and all of the shit that we put on ourselves. And what I remember yesterday is when I had that same feeling. It was just so validating to have the same experience with ayahuasca, with breathwork, and now with Bufo, the strongest psychedelic available to man, to know that this is the truth. This is the truth. There is no more doubt. It really erased all doubt. I knew my mind wasn't fabricating some kind of story around it. It really gave me a felt sense of the truth. From there, I just slowly started coming back and just felt so much gratitude for Niko and Karina. I felt like the three of us were just like in this weird energetic dimension, but they were smiling at me and looking at me with the most love a human can give to another human. And I just remember like saying, I need a face. I need a face. And Karina first came down and just gave me the deepest hug. And I started sobbing. And then Niko came and laid down all his 6 feet something on top of my body, full body to body contact, and just held me man to man. And I broke down and I sobbed because it feels so good to be so loved, especially by another man. Not in any sexual way whatsoever, but just pure love, man to man. And to accept it with no attachments, with no reservations, just feel it, feel it, feel it, feel it. It felt so incredibly healing. And we chatted for a little bit, and then I knew there would be a second round. At some point when when I was coming back, I saw this in the video that was recorded. And I just said, whew, I never have to do this again. And then after coming back for 20 minutes or so, I go, can we do this again? There's a part of me that was able to let go of the fear, and I wasn't scared anymore. I knew what to expect. I knew that I could do this, and I got so curious. I just wanted to do it again. So they prepared a second dose, and this time I would inhale as much as I could, all for myself, and they would take whatever was left for them. But this was the chance for me to go all the way and to really experience the depth of this medicine. They warned me that I could throw up on myself, that I could start purging, that I might wipe saliva all over myself. All kinds of crazy shit happens when people ingest Bufo. And so we went ahead, a lot less fear this time. I felt like I was sitting up more straight. I was more confident. I was ready to do this. So do my 5 inhales, exhales, and really breathe all of the smoke that I could. Just take all the way in, no holding back, just all the way in. And when you think you're done, take a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And this time, instead of closing my eyes and leaning back right away, I decided to just keep my eyes open and keep looking, just see what happens, see what happens. And the last thing I remember is everything just like vibrating electric, just and then poof, everything just disappeared once again. And again, I have no idea at this point what happened, what I saw, who I was, what I felt. Next thing I remember is I'm just lying on my side and I'm dry heaving. I won't repeat those sounds, but I'm dry heaving. I was sure I was throwing up. It was just like this like energy that needed to move through me. It wasn't because I was sick. There were no thoughts or stories attached to it. It's just energy like just releasing and moving out of me. And after a few minutes, I'm like, guys, did I puke on myself? And they're like, no, you didn't. And somehow I didn't. I was sure I had. But I've been on this dieta for ayahuasca for the last 12 days today. And I was fasting, so my body was very clean going into it. And again, I was very grateful for that so that I could have a physically a more gentle experience. And then I started just shaking the energy out. I just lied there on my side, and the feeling of being alive was even more powerful than it was the first time. And this time, there was no rebooting, there was no mind trying to take over. I just lie there in pure awareness. And the next thing I remember is Niko and Karina just started pouring water over my body, just very gently, this cold water, first on my arms, then on my back, on my neck, on my legs, on my head, and then pouring a whole bucket. And they say a Bufo experience, like a full rebirth. And that's really what it felt like with the water. I felt like I was source, I was infinite, and now I was like being reborn on this earth, and I was like coming out. Obviously, I'm not coming out of any embryo right now, but that's really what it felt like. And I think there's a deep, deep part of me that remembers birth. I think there's a part in all of us that remembers that. And to go through that kind of experience and then to have water poured over me, it's just such a powerful experience. And it was so beautiful. I felt the rebirth. And intuitively, I asked Karina and Niko, who happen to be Russian as well, can you guys please talk to me in Russian? And they come down to my ear and they start talking to me like I'm a baby or a child in Russian. And I don't know what brought me. Well, I mean, I can figure out what brought me to ask them that. It was the feeling of rebirth and connecting to my own childhood and my parents talking to me and just wanting to feel that love again. And Russian is my mother tongue. It's the language that I was raised in. And to hear beautiful, loving words said to me in that language, I can't even explain how powerful and how beautiful it was. I took it all in, and I soaked it all up, and I felt all of the love. And I connected with them, and I connected with my parents, and how much they loved me, and just how perfect I am. Not in an egotistical way, but I'm perfect. You who is listening, you're perfect. We're all perfect. Everything is perfect. After that, we played a few different songs and we sang along. And I felt this like immense healing in my voice, in my throat. I kept seeing these flowers and these vines growing over this wounded throat of mine. And I could tell that it was just healing. It was doing a lot of healing. And then I put my hands over my neck in a Reiki position, and I really concentrated on guiding that energy into my throat and into my voice, because that is something that I want to heal completely. I want to feel connected to my voice. By any means necessary. I want to get there. And then that was it. We chatted for a while, and then I went home and I met up with Davina and we shared the experience. And the rest of the day was interesting. I think a part of me was expecting to be in this incredible blissful state, feeling just like ecstasy. But very quickly, I found myself pretty normal, pretty much the same way that I felt that morning, minus the fear. And I think that maybe started messing with me. After chatting with Davina, I decided to go to the beach and go for a swim before picking up the kids. And it was nice at the beach, but again, in even picking up the kids, like I thought I would be like overwhelmed with like this joy, like, oh my gosh, my kids, and hug them and love them. It was very like, hey dad, hey Max, hey Charlie. And we went home and had snacks and went out to the restaurant to have dinner. And the whole time I just started feeling dense and heavy. And my mind was just trying to understand what it had been through. It couldn't recall anything, meaning couldn't recall the blank, the explosion. It couldn't recall that part. It could recall everything that I just shared. And yeah, I just felt this frustration building up inside of me. Niko and Karina told me that a lot of people experience reactivation in their sleep because that's when our DMT gets activated, and that I should expect things to kind of unravel from there. So I was a little bit excited to go to sleep. Davina and I had some tea and chatted before bed. And I was really trying not to attach any stories to what I was going through, trying not to set any expectations. But it was time for bed. I was like, cool, let's see, if I drop back into like this space and see what happens. And to be honest, it was a very normal night. I did have some dreams, and some of them did feel a little more blissful than usual, but nothing I haven't experienced before. But this morning I did wake up feeling a little bit lighter. Like today had the potential to be this really beautiful, beautiful day. And maybe some of the lessons were on their way. Sometimes we expect things to just be delivered to us quickly, and we lack that patience. And especially when doing inner journeys and going in there to find some lessons, patience is really required. And that's what we often call integration. And that's kind of what I'm going through now. So I just have to remind myself to be patient and to stay open, and that the lessons are going to come. So this morning I got the kids ready for school, and Davina biked over with them, and I hung back, and I just knew I needed to do some physical activity. I haven't been working out very much over the last couple of weeks. I'm on this dieta before ayahuasca, and that has kind of been messing with my energy levels. And for sure, it sounds like an excuse, and I am using it as one. But really, I should have kept working out. I also hurt my shoulder, and I hurt my hand this week. So all of these challenges have been thrown my way. Again, using them, totally honest with myself, using them as excuses because there's still other things that I could have been doing. Anyways, all that to say, it's been about 10 days since I've worked out, and it was time for me to kind of get back into it. I could really start feeling it in my body. And so I put on my headphones, put on some loud music, some Kaigo, Avicii, which I really love to just blast in my ears and get lost in, and started working out. And just a few minutes in, I started feeling so much better. I could feel like how alive my body is and just how good it feels to use all these muscles and just feel all this energy moving around. And my mind got quiet. And it's just such a simple thing. Like, I forget that we can work out not for any kind of result, but just to move the energy and get out of the mind and into the body. And that led me into dancing around the house. I was by myself here, which always helps for silly dancing. And then I went to shower, and I kept the speaker going, and I was singing and dancing in the shower and just like feeling so great. So great. From there, I sat on the yoga mat and did a little bit of rape and sat in meditation for about 30 minutes, I think it was. And that has led me to record this podcast. One of the main things that I'm feeling right now is just like this desire to live and to not worry about things, to go on an adventure with the kids. Yes, we live in beautiful Costa Rica and we're at the beach all the time and we have this wonderful life, but it still comes with its own routine, and the kids go to school and Davina and I do other things, and the weather is hot all the time, and it's normal. Even as beautiful as it is and as much as it is paradise, it's normal that there's a part of us that craves a little bit more adventure and a little bit of variety. And so I'm just really feeling into like wanting to live, to be human and to live. Like why else are we here? And so I think I'm gonna plan some adventures with the kids, maybe here in Costa Rica, maybe somewhere else, and go hop around a little bit. I just wanna be out there and enjoying myself and enjoying the kids and enjoying Davina and really just living. That's the lesson that I'm carrying with me this morning from my experience. It's simple, and I think we all feel it on an analytical mind level. But this morning, I just really feel it in my body. Like it's there. It's real. Thank you so much for listening to me speak for so long. This was a beautiful experience for me to just let myself talk and see where it took me. And I feel like I did okay. And I'm still alive. And I'm going to release this episode. And I love you all. Thank you so much.